a thought for you. Now, more than 200 people working in Westminster, including MPs and their staff, are going to compete in a challenge next month to see who can do most to improve their level of physical exercise. It's the Fit for Office Challenge. It's run by ukactive, the trade body representing gyms, pools and leisure centres across the country. I'm joined now by the group's chief executive, Huw Edwards, and the Labour MP, John Slinger, who chairs the all-party group on running and is taking part in the challenge. Welcome to the show.
Morning, Ed.
Morning, Ed. Thank you.
Let's start with you, Huw Edwards. The big question everybody's asking is why on earth you haven't asked me to take part in this challenge?
Well, there's still time if you want, Ed, to have a Times radio team. I'll take that as a given, so we can happily get you registered before we kick off tomorrow on Saturday.
I think me and Patrick Maguire start at such a low rate. We're bound to win hands down. So how does the challenge work? What does one have to do if one signs up?
Yeah, so Fit for Office, as you said, is a month-long campaign encouraging MPs like John, peers and their teams to be more physically active. We're working with our health and wellbeing tech partner, Myzone, to provide participants with activity tracking devices to capture their activity. This will be rewarded in Myzone effort points, MEPs, which are awarded not based on time or distance, but on effort. So it will be capturing people regardless of their fitness levels and the effort to make it more of a level playing field. And over the month, we'll be reporting weekly on the top 5 teams in a sort of a leadership board, a bit like the Premier League. And then at the end of the month, we'll be crowning Westminster's physical activity champions, Ed.
So it's not an individual exercise, it's a team exercise.
Team effort, which is really important in Westminster, I would say.
So John Slinger, I mean, this is a bit of a cheat, isn't it? I mean, you're chair of the all-party group on running, you're bound to come top.
Well, actually, having seen some of my colleagues and indeed jogged around the parks with them, I don't think I'm necessarily going to come top. There's some pretty fit runners. There's some ex-soldiers there. So I'm a what would I say? I'm a kind of amateur runner. I think it's about left, right, faster than walking, and try and get as much enjoyment out of it. But I have run quite a few half marathons and marathons in my time, and I'm really looking forward to this challenge. I've got a couple of my team in my office who have signed up. I think it's a really great initiative, which I thoroughly support.
So you're a team of 3 with 2 members of your office, is that right?
Yeah.
And were your 2 office workers allowed to exercise free will when you put the forms in front of them?
Absolutely. I'm a great believer in free will, Ed, alongside other things connected with freedom. So, yeah, so they were free to sign up and they were really keen to do so. I think it's such a great initiative just to encourage people to be more active. And as the chair of the all-party parliamentary group on running, that's really the focus that I have. It's not so much for me about the elite side of running or indeed of sport, but of the really positive effects that physical activity can have on your physical health and your mental health and friendship and breaking down barriers and all of that. So that's what I'm really keen to promote. And I think something like this also does that, gets people active, gets people having a bit of fun along the way.
So some Grinches will say, of course, you shouldn't be running, you should be working for your constituents. But of course, this is a great way, presumably, Huw Edwards, of MPs and their teams encouraging their constituents to take activity seriously, because they'll all be issuing press releases and putting photos in their local paper as they run around their constituencies.
Absolutely, Ed, and you know from your previous, ministerial role at DCMS the importance of this agenda around sport and physical activity. 3 really, really important areas of why we're doing this. Firstly, to actually shine a light on the health and well-being of policymakers. Spend a lot of time meeting MPs, long hours, high stress, sedentary work. Important that our policymakers have the greatest possible health and well-being. Secondly, to your point, fantastic facilities and programs that John will have in his constituency in Rugby, represented across the whole country. How can we get more MPs to visit their gyms, pools, leisure centres, schools, sports clubs? And then thirdly, how can they take those learnings from the local constituency back into Parliament and really elevate the importance of this agenda? We have a government which is seeking economic growth right now. Fundamental to that is the improvements in our national health to support productivity, address the long-term sickness list. And so there is no real economic growth, sustained economic growth, without the health improvements of our nation. And if we're able for our MPs to share that voice with the industry, then we've got an opportunity to try and influence government policy in this area.
Absolutely. And John Slinger, you're doing a lot of work with young people in this area, aren't you?
Well, in general, I think that we need to give far more voice to young people across the piece when it comes to politics locally and nationally. And in fact, I'll put a little pitch for an event I'm running, which is a Pitch Your Policy event on the 27th of March in my constituency, encouraging young people to come along and suggest an idea. And I was really interested in the interview that you held, Ed, just before we came on about the youth parliament. It's really important to get young people involved. But on the point about MPs and working all hours and all of that, it is a very high pressure, high stress job, and I'm a firm believer in physical and mental wellness being integral to anyone's job, but let alone MPs, because we can all work more effectively if we're physically and mentally healthy, and running and other exercise is a big part of that. And in fact, I'm running the London Marathon raising money for a mental health charity called Back and Forth Men's Mental Health, which is a group set up by a police officer after one of their colleagues tragically took their own life. And they go on walks, they encourage men to just go on a walk and talk about anything, but just getting people together, and that physical exercise, being together, doing something together, something physical, it helps your body and your mind at the same time. And we all need to have time in the day to switch off from the pressures of work. And I think that's why something like this can only be a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, John Slinger, the Labour MP for Rugby, and Huw Edwards, the Chief Executive of ukactive, thank you for coming on the show and talking about your Fit for Office challenge being participated in by MPs and peers. Up next, it's